time now for me to share with you, like I always do on a Friday, my blunt thoughts. Ready or not, here I come. And I've titled it today, Leadership Without Shame or Direction and Youth Without Hope or Respite, a snapshot of Ghana. Ghana, for today, I'm going to share two short stories with you. And those stories will situate the conversation. One, Thomas Edison, you know him, the scientist. He lost $2 million worth of equipment and the records of much of his life's work when the Edison industries were gutted by fire in the year 1914. Edison's son, Charles, rushing about to find his father, at last spotted him standing near the fire, his white hair blown with the winter wind. His heart ached for his aged father. Edison saw his son, Charles. "Where's your mother?" he shouted. "Find her. Bring her here. She will never see anything like this again as long as she lives." The next morning, walking among the ashes of so many of his hopes and dreams, the then 67-year-old Edison said, "There is great value in disaster. All our mistakes are burnt up. Thank God we can start anew. We can start afresh." The second story I'll share with you is about a young girl, Princess Juliana. She was watching a parade from her palace balcony in The Hague. Then she asked her mother, "Do all these people belong to me?" "No, indeed, child," replied Queen Wilhelmina. "We, rather, belong to all those people." These two stories, Ghana, for paint a picture of what leadership is and ought to be. You see, like the little princess, our misleaders unfortunately feel we are here for their pleasure, to do their bidding, while the opposite actually ought to be true. But like in the first story about Thomas Edison, though these misleaders have committed horrible mistakes, engaged in unpardonably selfish acts, destroyed so much and brought us to our knees, we must focus on regrouping, rising from the ashes like the mythical phoenix, and starting anew, starting afresh. Such a start is just around the corner as we approach election 2024. Our national destiny is on the line. The future of a people, of us all and our progeny, our children and their children, is on the line. Let us all be prudent, for if bad things befall Ghana, God forbid, we all shall suffer. Let's not get there. And that is where, on that note of selfishness and misleadership, I come to my slides for this morning. Starting from that ludicrous, ridiculous LI that recently was put forward. And it is testament to how leadership is failing. Government officials could use sirens on vehicles for official purposes and exceed speed limits for official purposes as well. In other words, chaos. But yet it was supported by both parties in Parliament. And later, one party attempted appearing clean, but we all know the tale of the tape. I'll not belabor the point. Now, the government officials referenced, though we know, if you look at Article 71, this likely would have been expanded, included the President, the Vice President, Speaker of Parliament, Chief Justice, Ministers, Supreme Court Justices, and Members of Parliament. Imagine all of these people going to work every day, and what we would have seen. Now, some reactions. Dr. Dominic Ayine, Chairman of Parliament's Subsidiary Legislation Committee, said, "As Chairman, I asked the Ministry to take account of all the proposals that were made, including those that I, as Chairman, also noted and asked that they should make. That also included whether they would amend Regulation 74 to add MPs to the list." You see? Next slide. Then you have the Minority Leader, Dr. Kasialato Forson. "We have instructed all our members on the committee to strongly oppose it at the committee level. We have also directed all 137 NDC members of Parliament to vote en bloc against the legislative instrument when it is brought to the floor." The question is, when did they arrive at this epiphany? After the hue and cry from the public, that was when they realized this? I'm questioning. Next slide. Then you have Hassan Tampuli, Deputy Minister of Transport. It's insightful what he says. "These provisions were not from the government. It came from Parliament, and nobody among the Subsidiary Legislation Committee can say it isn't from there, and we are happy to be withdrawing this LI." So, I'm asking, who is telling the truth and who is lying? And why is leadership all about serve me, serve me, serve me? Princess Juliana, do these people belong to me? No. As a leader, you belong to the people. But that's the faulty mindset we have with our misleaders in this country. They are not there to serve, most of them. They are there to take. Now, this brings me to my next issue, the latest Afrobarometer survey and what it reveals. Let's start with corruption. 77% of the respondents said that for them, as far as they knew, corruption had increased. 77%. I don't know what other testament to corruption and its rise or fall there is than that. This is an A grade in corruption. A. Next slide. Now, if you look at the preference for democracy, and this is where I start getting worried. If you look at the 10-year differential, 2011 to 2013, 82% said they wanted democracy. That was their preference. In 2021, 2023, you see a 6 percentage point decline to 76%. There's more. Next slide. Then you look at the rejection of military rule. Over here, I am very worried. Because you look at the 10-year window, 2011 to 2013, you had 86% of us saying no to military rule. Now it has dropped to 68%. That's an 18 percentage point drop. And you know why I'm even more worried? In a place like Mali, which has gone the way of a coup, whether it is because maybe the military is doing certain things they like or whatever, I'm never for military rule. Don't get it twisted. But the level of tolerance of military rule has actually increased. And the pitching against them has decreased by 40% in Mali. In Burkina Faso, similar figure. In Niger, similar figure. What is going on? Are our leaders awake to the dangers inherent in those? Next slide. Now, satisfaction with democracy, which continues with why people are going this way. Again, 74% just about a decade ago, now 51%, a 23 percentage point drop. If this isn't time for us to wake up and smell the coffee, which is percolating, then I don't know. I know some of the leaders are watching me this morning and saying, you see, that's the problem, until disaster strikes. I don't think William Ruto saw it coming in Kenya. Just as around 2008, they didn't see that would happen. Let's not wait. Now, if then you look at people asking, should the military intervene in politics? Let's start with those who are neutral. 5%, we don't care, sitting on the fence. 55% never intervene. I am in here. But interestingly, 40% saying they can intervene if leaders abuse power. And if you look at Africa as a continent, there are very few bright spots. What happens to the rest of us? Next slide. And then the question, is Ghana headed in the right direction? Those neutral 2%, those who said yes, a paltry 11%. 87% of the people saying no. Again, you would have party foot soldiers and community haters come and say, oh, things are right, you just can't see it. Okay, these are ordinary Ghanaians reacting. I don't know what they are seeing. Maybe we are all blind, and those in power are the only ones who can see. You know what the Bible says about the blind leading the blind? They both fall in a ditch. But then, democracy in Ghana, and I'll be segueing into something else. Ghana's, and this is from that latest Afrobarometer report, Ghana's much heralded reputation for clean elections has been tarnished by increased violence with 8 fatalities during the 2020 presidential polls. Next slide. And then it has more to say. President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo has grown increasingly heavy-handed, stifling the media and eroding the accountability of institutions. I don't need to go into this. If you know, you know. And this is where I'm going to wrap, because the problems are myriad and they all merge from MPs and other leaders wanting certain excesses to be granted them to what is happening in Ghana, on Africa as a continent with misleadership. And this, Youth engagement, 15 to 35 years, from the latest Ghana Statistical Service reports. In the third quarter of 2023, 1.9 million youth in Ghana were idle, with no employment, no education, no training. That's a ticking time bomb. We know that, right? Because someday, like I always say, someday, when the poor have nothing else to eat, they'll eat the rich and everything you've stashed away. Next slide. The effect of this, large size of idle youth, and you know that saying, idle hands, the devil's workshop. A decrease in productivity, an increase in crime rates, then the ripple effect on all of us, lower economic growth, which we can't afford to have, especially under an IMF program, and a threat to national security. Then the bit about military rule, that is what awaits you when you get here. Next slide. And then the breakdown, the females, even more worrying. 1.2 million females in that 1.9 plus million bracket, and the males 715,000. It's a cause for worry. Great one. Now, this is where I'll end. Then you look at the idle youth in Accra, and I'm not surprised. I almost say Accra stay by plans, Ampa. Accra stay by plans. 565,360. Almost 600,000 of our youth. 1 in every 3 idle youth resides in Accra. 1. If you pick 3, 1 is in Accra. So when these leaders, I beg your pardon, misleaders, come and sit here, go and sit in other studios and try to tell us we are not thinking, we don't see, we are blind. Sometimes, honestly, it's so annoying you want to smack somebody. Honestly. But you hold your peace. I want to leave you with these thoughts of Robin Sharma, who says, leadership is not a popularity contest. That is what our leaders have made it. Who is more popular? Mama, Baumia. It's not a popularity contest. It's about leaving your ego at the door. The name of the game is to lead without a title. Not president, vice president, speaker, chief justice. All of that, I'm sorry, is tosh. It means nothing. What legacy are you leaving? Those are the words of Robin Sharma, a lawyer and author. And that's how I wrap this morning's blunt thoughts. I always do this hoping that people will reflect, think deeper, think better, and not just be blindly partisan, NDC, MPP. But think, because your future and mine is on the line. My name is Benjamin Akakpo. These are my blunt thoughts shared with you, raw, hot, unedited, undiluted. As always, I pray, God bless Ghana and make her great and strong.